Welcome to the Ladies Who Leverage podcast, where we empower women to own their power, create influence and impact, and live life unapologetically AF. It's time to leverage your expertise, resources, and relationships to build your business, brand, and badassery. So just click subscribe and let's get it. I'm your host, Kelly Charles Collins. Welcome to the Ladies Who Leverage podcast. Today, I have my special guest, Elizabeth Chritton, and I want y'all to know that this woman is so amazing. I cannot wait for you to hear her story. Now, a lot of us talk about, struggles and, where we came from and where we're going, but Elizabeth is no stranger to struggle. So when former welfare mom Elizabeth Chritton found herself caught up in a mass corporate layoff, she had to make bold decisions to take the entrepreneur route. She went on to sell over $7 million, yes, with an M, million dollars as a direct sales representative. Elizabeth works with entrepreneurs and people in entrepreneurial and sales roles to help them achieve their goals and dreams. Elizabeth, welcome to the Ladies Who Leverage podcast.
Thank you. Well, thanks for having me.
I'm so happy that you're here. So you and I met a couple of years ago when we were at a mansion retreat with Donna St. Louis, and I was so intrigued by you. And I remember we were going out to do the escape room. And we had such an awesome time being in the car together and just having a conversation. And that's where I learned about your journey of being, on welfare and then to $7 million. So before we get into that point, obviously you said you were, as a result of the mass corporate layoff. So just take us back a little bit to where your story began in terms of corporate, and then we'll move forward into how that turned into where you are now, because you're just an amazing woman.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. So, it was that long crawl to get my degree, right? And I had a couple of children. So it took 8 years to get my bachelor's. In the end, I'm like, let me just get something I can get a job with, right? So I got computer networking. And then I got my corporate job and started my MBA. It was just the thing. The company paid for your degree. It was working on my MBA. I realized how much I love business. I had originally been going to school for physics, so I'd taken a ton of math. So they never asked me to take like microeconomics or macroeconomics. And so I just never had taken those kinds of courses or learned about business. And I fell in love with it. So then when I got laid off, I was part of the dot-com boom. Like when I graduated, all of us had multiple job offers. And by the end of the summer, half the people I graduated had already lost their jobs. I lasted 3 years before I lost mine, but the dot-com bubble did burst. And that's when I decided, I'm just going to do what I found super intriguing and interesting is business. That's what I had gotten out of working on my MBA. So that's how I transitioned from corporate to entrepreneurship.
What was it about business? You said that you were intrigued about business. What was it that intrigued you?
So like I said, my first degree was physics, and I loved making complicated things simple, right? And then that's kind of what physics does. It, at least Isaac Asimov, and I fell in love with him and everything. So with business, to really get it right, to really grow properly, you need to it may sound daunting, but to be honest, you need to be able to balance marketing, operations, finances, HR, which is taking care of yourself, or if you have employees, all of the different parts of a business. And you need to be able to do it evenly and hopefully with grace. and so it just seemed like a puzzle, right? How to get all this down, because some people might be really good at doing the thing, which is operations, or some people might be really good at marketing, but they're terrible at follow through or making things happen. Or there's just, one of my professors always said, it's the cash flow dummy. And he loved Clinton. So he's like, it's the cash flow dummy. And I had him for enough classes. I'm like, all right. So you have to watch your marketing. You have to watch your operations. You have to watch your finances. You have to watch all the pieces of the puzzle. That's what intrigued me about it, was making something that's complicated to make it simple.
Yeah. I've never heard anybody explain it like that. That's kind of interesting, but it is, right? As an entrepreneur, especially starting out, you are in charge of all of those things and you have to figure out how do these things work together so that do become successful. So when you got laid off from corporate and you said, okay, well, I'm just going to go into business, right? Because I
Mhm.
find it very interesting. What did you do? Like, what is the business that you went into?
Oh my God. Okay. So, so it, so many people, it was kind of like a coal mine closing, right? So many people were being laid off from the corporation I worked with. There were a ton of people with my background in my metro who had no way to get a job because there were too many of us. So the government was paying for like retraining at the time. So I took a course through the Kauffman Foundation, if anyone's heard of them. It's a like 6-8 week course, and they walked us through how to start a new business. I was going to do home inspections. I know, right?
Home inspection.
The real estate market was booming. Actually, a lot of people who got laid off from the company I was at ended up getting into real estate because you had to make your own job. There were no job. There were so few jobs and there were so many of us just dumped into the market at once, right? So I spent 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that, working on my business plan. And the government was even going to pay for me to go through like a 6-week training on, how to be a home inspector, like everything. I had this amazing business plan put together. I was ready to go. And then the place that does the training on how to do home inspections, they kind of canceled their class. I don't know, maybe not enough people signed up, whatever. They're like, we're going to do it in 6 months. And I'm like, I only have 2 weeks of unemployment left.
Right.
Right. Because I was thinking through things. I'd planned it out. I knew in my unemployment, I was going to start the business, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So I told my husband at the time, I was like, I'm just going to sell Avon. I'll have money in 2 weeks. And I had done it on and off like 3 times in the
Okay.
past while I was going to college. So it was something I knew. And so I just fell back on it. I had one summer in college, I sold books door to door. It's a thing. And so I knew how to work a neighborhood because I was new in town. I just gotten married. I didn't have a job. I didn't know anybody. I just started knocking on doors. I knocked on thousands of doors in the first few
And
weeks.
and that was for Avon, right? So it
Right.
wasn't it wasn't like what we have now where everything's like, oh, just go online
Oh
and
yeah, no,
order for
Facebook didn't
my
even exist. Yeah.
right. So you actually went door to door.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
talk about that.
Oh, well, see, and here's the deal. Uh, I wasn't frightened of it. I knew how to do it. So, and that's a big thing I talk about in my book, from knocking on doors to making millions. The whole, when I wrote that book, I wanted to find all the different ways people could sell in direct sales. And then after I interviewed, each person said, well, this is the easiest way to do it. This is the fastest way to do it. Da, 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 da. I'm like, okay, they can't all be right. And what I realized is what you know naturally and your natural talent, that's the way to go because that's your fastest way to success.
Hmm.
For me, where I was at the time, I already knew how to work a neighborhood. I knew how many times to knock on the door, how many steps to take back, how many seconds to wait after knocking on the door before to see if they'd answer or not. I knew how to document a neighborhood, like which houses people answered, which didn't, how many times to go back. Yeah, the whole thing. I mean, I'd been trained.
Wait, Elizabeth,
What?
you are so fascinating. Okay, Elizabeth, how did you know all of that? Like, where did you get all of that?
When I had the job selling books door to door.
Okay.
In college, they
Okay.
trained us like a certain percentage of doorbells don't work. So you knock on the door, you take 2 steps back, you wait 6 seconds, or I don't remember how many now because it's been 20 years, but you would just count in your head and wait. And I knew what to say when they answered the door. I knew how to get them to give me their name and phone number, like the whole thing. And but
Wow.
so that's the thing. So other people are like, oh my God, you went door to door. Oh my God. I'm
Yeah,
like,
that's me.
but I was trained.
That's me.
Like,
You, oh my God, you went door to door.
yeah, I did it 60 hours a week for like a month, I I knew how to go door to door. It wasn't an issue. Whereas like I don't know, some people like build their business with gift baskets, right? And I remember the guy finishing the interview by saying, well, the hardest thing about making gift baskets is curling the ribbon. I'm like, okay, so first of all, I'm not crafty at all. And I can do it now, but it takes a really long time. And it took me a really, really long time to figure out how to do all these things and to like pull from the bottom of my feet somewhere, craftiness inside me,
Yeah.
right? Whereas he just kind of did it naturally. So that's the big thing. I think when someone's building a business, they're like, oh my God. I did a little training with like, it was 3 or 4 women that wanted to start their own little business. It was like last fall. And all of them were like, I need to get an Instagram account. And I'm like, I'm like, come on. If you don't even have an Instagram account and you don't even know, I mean, there's a learning curve. There's figuring out hashtags. There's figuring out, branding. Like there's so many different things to figure out. And they were like hinging their success on having an Instagram account. I'm
Yeah.
like, but what you do, people, yes, you probably need an Instagram account. But right now, like while you're still trying to like figure out your business and this and that, I feel like, but if you already have this, you already know how to take the pictures, you know how to use the filters, you know how to do the hashtags, you know the branding, you know what people are looking for, you know how to talk to people. Sure, yeah, throw your business into your Instagram account because you know not to make a separate Instagram account because you know Instagram.
Right. So when you decided that you were going to go out, so you decide Avon is a thing,
Mhm.
right? Because home inspection is not it. Not it. And you're going to go do Avon. And so you start going out knocking on doors. How did that transform into the business that I know that you built in Avon? Talk about that journey, because in your introduction, I said you went on to sell over $7 million as a direct sales representative.
Yes.
And I can imagine people being like, did she do that knocking on doors?
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I started out knocking on the doors and my goal, or soon after I started, they did a cruise ship incentive, right? And it was actually for building teams. So I'm knocking on doors and they started the incentive to win this cruise. And it was crazy because you had to already be the first level of leadership. You already had to have a team to be in the thing. And then you had to build it a certain amount. I didn't have one person and I worked for an entire month and I did all the things. Like I made a list of all the different things that you could do, that I could find. And I just kept trying all the different ways. I feel like this is something that's also important that I'm talking about in my second book. It's like, they're like, well, I tried it and it was trash, so let's drop it. And it's like, no, a whole month. I mean, doing all it, like flyers in the grocery store. And I mean, just everything and nothing. I mean, I feel like a normal person would have given up, but it was nothing for a whole month. Of 40 hours a week of trying to find someone to join my team. And then suddenly like 5 people joined in 1 week. And I ended up, I won the cruise. I earned like bonus things they had going on. I was flown to New York, to be put on the cover of one of Avon's like internal magazines. And yeah, so it went well. Everything did work. I just had to fine tune it to get it right. That's something that's really important if you have your business. It's not trash if it doesn't work. It's like, well, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But so you just keep futzing with it until you get that reaction you're looking for from your customers, your audience, or whatnot.
Yeah.
But
Elizabeth, in that moment though, so here it is, you said, listen, I have 2 more weeks of unemployment. Something has got to give, right? And I'm doing all of these things. Were you making money from selling Avon, but you just didn't have your team to go up? Or were you in that point when you're like, these things are not working, not making money? And if so, what kept you going?
I guess belief. I mean, I was making a little bit. Super honest, I was probably making like a few $100s a month to start. I got customers right away. Customers are easier, than finding team members. But most of that money I rolled right back into, into the business for a while.
Right.
I kind of feel like I didn't really make much money until about 3 years into the business. Because when I did get flown to New York, I found someone who had a little office. So then I created my own little office when I got back and, just kind of had some Avon for sale in the front. Dismal failure, lost money every month I had it open, but I realized we kind of needed a store because people really just wanted to shop from those 4 bookcases I had in the front space rather than use it as a team building center. So from there, I opened a store, and I worked. I logged my hours in the computer from the beginning. I don't know why, out of curiosity, whatever. I worked 90 to 100 hours a week for those first 6 months for no pay when I opened the store. And then the next 6 months, I paid myself $500 a month. So, and then what you do when you're new and you're building like a store or a business like that, you trade off between money and time.
Yeah.
Right. So I actually was paying employees before I paid myself because I needed time, and I couldn't even work on the business because I was either upfront or trying to get stuff done. So then I gave myself a little bit of money, and then you hire another person, then you pay yourself a little more, and then you hire another person. And, if you're lucky, and what happened to me is at some point you have enough people, you don't need to hire any more people. And then you can just keep giving yourself more.
Yeah. It's funny that you talk about, giving up the time so that you could do more, because it's one of the things that I have been talking to the women and ladies who leverage about is really, are we working on our businesses or in our business? And so many of us as solopreneurs, as, entrepreneurs with maybe a smaller staff, are working in our business. And so it doesn't free up the time for us to strategize and be the visionary and to create the partnerships that we need to. And it's something that I'm learning. So I love that you said that. And, you talk about opening a store for Avon.
Yes.
Was that something that people did, or was that something unique that you did?
It was allowed.
Okay.
I think at the peak they had like 225 stores in 2010, and that's when they said no one can open another store. So it's been about 2010. Yeah, so it's been about 11 years since they stopped allowing people to open more stores, and it's down to about 50, 55 stores.
Okay. Oh, so there are actually stores still open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And so talk about so you start knocking door to door, and then you have your actual brick and mortar store.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go from mass layoff to $7 million in direct? Because that direct sales is not easy. Well, to me, you are a pro at this, and you are really, really good at this. But for those people who are, in direct sales, thinking about getting into direct sales, because we know that is really an area that when women are going into entrepreneurship, they gravitate towards.
Right. Well, yeah.
Yeah. So what are so talk about how you got to the 7 million, and what are some of the lessons and maybe tips that you could have for women who are getting into that to direct sales?
Good point. Yeah. So the store, that was like hubris. That's when you think you know something but you don't, right? Okay, yeah, that was hubris, because I was like, oh, I've got my MBA, I can do this. I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never even worked retail. I had like cleaned hotel rooms and worked fast food up to that point, and then my corporate job, and then I'm like, I know how to run a store. That was I don't know what I was thinking. That was something else. That was something else. I'm really super lucky. There was actually several lucky things that I actually was able to stay open long enough to figure out how to make it work. But yes, I really feel like, direct sales is amazing for a lot of people. I made a meme a couple months ago. I'm like, direct sales is for women who can't make cupcakes and they're not crafty enough for Etsy. It's like, not everyone knows how to cook. Not everyone can create a thing, and so direct sales, it's like, oh, look, the company already has the products made. They kind of have a certain amount of marketing for you. You just have to go out and sell it. It cuts out a lot of the pieces of that puzzle, in trying to build a business. It's a shortcut. I think in this day and age, I think you could go door to door. I think it's a viable option in some areas, depending on your neighborhood. I wouldn't do it in New York City, high rise, whatever, but
Right.
It depends on your neighborhood. But nowadays, it's just social media and it's all online. It's different. Even when I had the store, I started out mailing brochures to customers' addresses. And then I switched to, and even till the end, I would do a voicemail thing, that's go to Ed. But near the end, I found all my new customers on Facebook. and Facebook advertising. So I wouldn't have survived. And you have to change. And so for me to say, well, what I did good God, I'm old. What I did 21 years, God, I did almost 2 decades ago, I guess, 2003. It doesn't work for right now. But well, what happened? So after 17 years with Avon, and I did close my store, there were a lot of changes happening, and something told me it was a good time to close. And it was actually the exact right time. A little angel on my shoulder said, I think you should close. And I told my husband, like, I think we should close. And he's like, I think you're right. And it made no sense to anyone. I mean, I was making 6 figures. The store was going great. The sales were maintaining. It's just that in the background, I had to work harder and then harder and then harder and then work more and more hours to maintain those sales. And it's just because people were moving to online.
Yeah.
So it was just harder and harder to maintain. And I thought, this isn't looking good for the future, and there are changes, blah, blah, blah. It was actually the perfect, I couldn't have, the month I closed, even one more month would have not, whatever. It was perfect. So I've been sitting here, and then a pandemic happened and all these things happened, and life keeps throwing curveballs as life does. So I picked up another direct sales company, Joya, sells CBD wellness stuff like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And so now starting a new business, especially in the middle of a pandemic, I'm not going door to door.
Right.
But
if you think about door to door, right? If you think about door to door, it really is like, as we're in social media, that's sort of door to door, right? It's just electronic door to door, right? You have to hit people's pages, right? You have to.
It's true. Yeah, got to show up on their page. So the deal with, and what I have stumbled on it about 3 months ago, and there's actually several different companies out there. So there's Teamzy. What I'm talking about are CRMs for people in network marketing. So a CRM,
not everyone knows what a CRM is.
It's a customer relationships management. So like, let's say you're all doing it electronic, or maybe you even have some friends in person, and that you can actually see in person. And some people might keep a notebook. Actually, a lot of people don't keep track of anything. They'll just ask people, and then, whatever. Or maybe some people will write in a book, okay, these are the people I wrote to. Oh, I need to get back to. They don't really have a system set up for keeping track of everyone they've talked to. So these companies, Teamzy and Penny, just Penny. So they're the CRMs, and they're made specifically for direct sales. Actually, when I started back up, I pulled up a CRM I had been using for speaking, and it was like, man, how am I going to like redo this whole thing? I don't know. So I looked it up. They're both super cheap. There's lots of training. Here's the cool thing. They help you like either give stars or rate each person. So if you want to if you're starting out, you can go rate all your friends and family higher, because you want to see them more often, come up to as a reminder to talk to them, right? Or people that, that love to cook. You're selling Pampered Chef, and you have friends that love to cook. You're going to rate them higher so that you talk to them first. Your warm market, this and that. These programs actually have scripts for what to say.
Oh, wow.
What to say the first time you send a PM, what to say the second time, what to say the third time. They even have like 10 follow-ups. So you start to talk to someone, and maybe they show interest. But here's the thing. The new thing in network marketing is to focus on relationships. So I don't know about you, but like I had someone last night, bless their hearts. Here's the thing. People are, I don't judge people, because people are trying to figure out how to run a business. They're trying to figure out how to feed their family, and they do super awkward things, like really awkward things. And you're like, oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry for you. But I get it, because they're just trying to figure it out. But one person in my messenger just last night, she was like, have you ever heard of bup, 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 bup? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's for this kind of stuff, right? And then she's left me 2 1-minute voicemails. And I'm like, you really, what? And I want to message her back so badly and be like, how's that working for you? Did your upline tell you to do this? Or, so but these Teamzy and Penny, and I think there's another company out there. So, you just look at which one might be a better match for you. But you start out by saying, hey, Beth, you came across my news feed. That was pretty neat what you're doing with decorating cakes. how's your day going? Or how are you doing? I hope your day is great. Like, you're literally just building connections, building relationships. It's a longer game, because you're not just dropping into their thing like, oh my God. I mean, you have to, if you're on social media, you're getting the messages like, I just started a new business. I'm so excited. You should buy from me. Here's my link. And like,
Yeah.
what the heck happened here? So it's more about just building connections, talking to people, and then, talking to them, talking about their family, their occupation, their recreation, and finding out their level of motivation. I mean, like, if you sell shakes to help people lose weight, and you're talking with your friend, you're like, no hot girl summer for me. I got too fat, during COVID. Everyone got third of the people got skinnier, 2/3 of people got chunkier during COVID. And you're like, oh man, I was chunky too, but I lost 40 pounds. How'd you do it? Well, I started up with this company. I've got shakes, but in a way that's more natural, right?
Yeah.
Instead of like, you kind of been looking chunky on your timeline. So I'm sending you a link to my powder be a fatty. So
Yeah, I don't think that
hasn't happened. All right. Don't think because it does. Yeah. And I mean, even in my own line, I mean, I've helped team members. They're like, well, she said she had a migraine. So they went into her DM and said, you have migraine. You should take my CBD. Here's the link. Boom. And it's like, oh
yeah. And I know, so one of the things I know, Elizabeth, about you is that even though you got into direct marketing, right, as a kind of, I need a job, right? I need to get something going. And I am going to talk to you about being on welfare too. And I think it will roll into this question. But one of the things that you have really taken hold of in terms of doing your direct marketing all along from Avon to now Joya is this whole thing about bringing other women along and helping women to start their businesses. Why is that important to you?
Yeah. So I think really honestly, as adults, we're just either reacting to or trying to fix our childhood. I'm just going to be honest, and, people who devote their lives to taking care of animals. Maybe there was an animal that like they're healing their inner child by taking care of animals, or, they paint nails because they want women to feel beautiful because no one in their life let them feel beautiful. So whether people want to admit it or not, a lot of times what we get into is just giving ourselves the thing that we always wanted. And we all know women in the past didn't have the ability to make choices because they didn't have money. That it's like, well, husband's on his fifth, mistress, but I don't know how to drive a car and I have 5 children. And so I'm staying married. Not speaking to any particular grandparents' experience. I'm just saying I just feel like when women have money, they can make the best choices. They have the opportunity to make choices for themselves, for their children. If money's tight, you don't get to make the choice of, is my kid going to soccer camp or dance camp? They're staying home and they're kicking rocks in the backyard. So even if it's just, we're going to live in this neighborhood so they can go to this school, or they can take these extracurriculars, or my family, women just kind of, when women have money, they spend it on the family. I think someone did it way better politically correct way of explaining it. So apparently I'm a little gruff about it, but when they've found when men get money, they spend it on clothes and entertainment. And when women get money, they spend it on food and family.
Yeah.
Someone said it in a much nicer way and I'm like, yeah, whatever. They didn't want to offend men by saying, I'm like, well, it is what it is. And not all men are that way, but in general. And so when they're going into like underdeveloped countries, they have found that they need to focus their entrepreneurial programs on women, because the women then make sure their children get an education and make sure like they raise up the entire community by getting money into the hands of women. And that was another part of it's like, let's help women get money so that they can get their children the education and the food and the things that they want, and lift up in entire generations, because women have choices.
And what was your story around that? Because, we talk about you being on welfare. What was your story and how did you pull yourself out of that space? And really open your brain and your heart to bring other women along so that they don't have that same journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I I just did a TikTok yesterday and they were like, I stitched with someone and they were like, tell me you grew up poor without telling me you grew up poor. And so one of the ones I remembered, sometimes there was a gap between when we would run out of toilet paper and my mom's next paycheck. And so she would teach us, remind us how to rinse out a washcloth between uses. It's like that kind of poor.
Right.
Christmas without presents, kind of watching all the food disappear and then eating oatmeal for a week because that was the last big tub. That was the last thing left. So those kinds of things. And sure, it gives you scarcity issues, which is probably what I have, which again, like, I don't know. I just feel like we're repairing our childhood. And so it's like, yeah, I never want to live like that again. Never want to be like that again. Want to always have enough money. So that's, I love that with entrepreneurism, there's no top, there's no limit. With money, also there's the freedom of time. Now, yes, I was working 90 to 100 hours a week. By the time I got to the end of the store, I had people cleaning the store. I had my CPA and bookkeeper. I had a store manager. I had all the employees, and there was money. Right. So, and in the last few years, I did have to work up to like 4 days a week at the store because the marketing got intensive. But a few years before that, before I had to really step up the game with marketing, I was only working like 1 or 2 days a week. So you can, if you can get there, you can set up your business where you're working 1 or 2 days a week and you're making good money.
Yeah.
So there's that. And, I had a mentor. And I think it was early in the store and I only had like 4 or 5 employees at the time. And she's like, well, how many employees do you have? I'm like, 5. She's like, you're helping put food on the table of 5 women. I was like, oh my God. Like it just gave me chills. I was
Right.
like, oh my God. And so every woman I help build a business, I'm doing it tenfold, right? I mean, you're not just helping yourself, you're helping a whole bunch of women put food on their table, keep roofs over their head, and have the money to make decisions they want to make for their lives.
Yeah. I think that's so awesome. When I listened to you talk about it, I know I had mentioned to you when you were doing Joya, because I said I am so not a direct salesperson, but when I watch you, like the joy that you have and just you are so all in. And I said to you, Elizabeth, you make me want to do Joya, right? And it's so something, it's something that I have no desire to do, right? I'm not good at that kind of stuff, but you are really, really good at it. And I think it's really interesting if people are listening to you because you've been in this business, like you said, over 20 something years. And so you really had to change, right, as the times changed. Was that hard for you to be able to do, to make all of those different transitions? Because you go from knocking on doors to now you're doing TikTok videos, which we are going to talk about your TikTok videos, but there is a whole progression that happened for you to be able to get to millions and get all of the awards that you've gotten in Avon and now the awards that you're getting in Joya. How did you keep up with all of that?
So yeah, you can't take change personally, right? So let's say, it was the 1940s and I had become the best door-to-door lady ever. And or when they introduced telephones, I don't know, like whatever it is, you could have gotten to the top of your game at this thing and it's not the thing anymore. It's just not the thing. It's not. And so you're like, oh, okay, well, because there's sometimes, I find a thing that works. It catches, it catches people's attention. It catches the thing. You're like, all right. And then you kind of go to that and then you keep futzing, keep futzing, keep futzing. And I mean, honestly, it's the skill of futzing with stuff. That's how you keep going. That's how you keep growing. Not like on the one hand, you want to start with your natural talent. You want to start with what you already know, what leans into you. I know someone who's a super introvert and she can make Google do backbends for her. She makes Google her bish and she builds her business online. and other people, I start talking to them and they're like, I need an Instagram account. And I'm like, I've been talking to you 15 minutes. You need to get in front of people. Your superpower is the one-on-one. You're going to do crap on Instagram and online. That is not you. But so you have to start where you're at, and then you have to keep growing and trying different things. The Velociraptor in Jurassic Park, right? So in the first movie, they were like, she keeps touching different parts of the fence to see if any one of them doesn't zap her. It's like they learn. And so if you can be like that and you're just constantly touching the fence, finding a new thing that catches, finding another thing that catches. Because it changes. It just changes. And yeah. And you're like, nope, this is the
you
thing.
have to be agile enough and willing and open to change with it.
Oh yeah, no, when I was mailing books for the store, like I had gotten an entire account with the post office. We had a whole process of like how to get all the zip codes together, how to do this. We did assembly line. I even bought a van for all the cartloads of books that I would take to the post office, because I was doing like 1,000 or more books every 2 weeks. Yeah, I didn't even mail stuff in the end. You just because it wasn't the way to go anymore. And you figure something out, but it just, so it's that openness to the change. It's the openness, like, yeah, I used to do it that way, but now this is the new way. And I made fun of TikTok so much.
Yeah, so let's talk about that TikTok.
How stupid is that app? Ugh.
Yeah, I'm on TikTok. I go on TikTok as entertainment.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people, I'm like, I'm going to be on there for 10 minutes.
Oh my God.
And then all of a sudden the guy comes up and is like, hold up. You've been on for way too long, right?
I told someone about that guy and they're like, are you serious? Like, yeah, he tells you to get off the phone and go drink water.
Yeah, right. And I'm just like, oh, wow, I've been on here that long. But I got on TikTok the other day and I see this redhead that I know in this orange shirt, and she is on TikTok. So you tell me, Elizabeth Chritton, how did you end up on TikTok and why are you doing it?
Well, I was going through like it's probably my third set of Instagram training, because Instagram changes as well. Yeah. And they change like even more than Facebook has changed, because they've got the reels and the this and the that. And so over the last 6 or 7 years, I'm going through my third set of Instagram training, and they're like, you have to get on reels. You have to get on reels. So I'm making reels, and I'm doing okay with them, but TikTok's video, their tool, the video process, like how to make the videos on it's way more powerful than anything else. So I'm like, all right, I'll make the videos on TikTok and then use them for reels. And it was funny because I was like, don't look anywhere. Just make your stupid video and then put it in Instagram. And because I just thought the app was so dumb, but like super useful. And then after a couple weeks, I don't know what happened. Oh, I was thinking I need some ideas on how to make videos. So I'm like, you know what? How about I just watch some of these videos in TikTok, and then I'll have ideas on reels. And I started watching, and that was the end of like you said, the guy at 11:30 at night was like, you get off, stop. Right. And, but I realized, well, so everyone has their own personality, right? So someone could be making TikTok videos and have a serious vibe, or someone could have a fabulous vibe, or like whatever. And those videos you're going to be attracted to them, and you're going to see in your head, I could do that for me, but this way. Anyone who's on TikTok kind of knows what I try to explain to my husband. It's memes with video and music. Right. And so then we all know certain kind of memes. If you see a certain kind of meme, this is especially true if you're on Reddit, because they will use like 3 pictures the same and 1 different. And every time you see those first 3, the joke, because you get it. Like over time, you get the joke. So it's the same thing with TikTok. There'll be a certain like 15, 30 seconds of music, and that you're going to see a redemption story, or you're going to see a prank, or that whatever, because that's what that music is for a redemption story, or, oh my God, I screwed up. Right. Or the dances, or the latest dance. Yeah. What's funny is because my algorithm, I don't see any of the dances because that's what I see. They drive me see all the dances. Right. So you must love dances, because everyone, I'm like, why am I seeing a dance? I don't do that. But I have figured out, like, one of my little, I guess, I mean, you can call it a superpower, just one of my strengths is that I'll see something and they've used the same song. I've seen the same song a dozen times. And all of a sudden, I'm like, wait, that fits. And it's a little bit different than everyone else that has done it. And maybe they're talking about how to make cornbread, but I know that it's a TikTok format that I can use for my business. So I do.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what you were just saying, because as I'm listening to you, what you have really done, and I've watched you do this over the couple of years that I've known you, you're a researcher, right? You're a definite researcher. And I think that has served you very well in terms of your business. And what you were just explaining about TikTok is that you were very intentional, right? And you are very intentional on TikTok. So when you go on there, it's not like, oh, let me just go on there and just throw this video on there. You said, let me see what are the patterns, what is the structure, where do I fit into that? And then that's how I will show up on Instagram. And I think that's a really, really important lesson, Elizabeth, for all of us, right? In terms of because social media, we were talking about social media this morning as we were walking for the ladies in Walk, Talk, and Collabosaurus for Ladies Who Leverage. And it can be so overwhelming. But I think part of that too is not understanding what you just said, right? About like really looking to see where you fit in and just trying to do the things that everybody else is doing, but they don't necessarily match your business. They really don't have anything to do with what you're doing. So you could be on TikTok, you could be on Instagram, you could be on Reels, you could be on doing all of those things. But if you're not doing the right thing on those platforms, it doesn't serve you.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and I don't, it's funny because for a while, I really only knew the very, very basics. And I'm gonna be honest, I probably am up to like 40% speed. And I was like, I told my husband, I'm like, I don't know how to explain it, but I get people just sending me PMs. All like, love your videos. Well, you say, I love you. And I like, these people aren't interested in my business, but I was going to a friend's house. I saw a friend in person and her husband, and I'm like, oh yeah, we are Facebook friends. Her husband was like, I love your videos. He'd never reacted to him or anything. I don't know if his wife was showing him. So I know it's getting a lot of eyeballs on me. It's getting a lot of wait. And just for the listeners, I make them in TikTok. I have a beef with TikTok at the moment, but I take it and I put it in Reels. I put it in my Instagram story and I put it in my Facebook story. Everything's happening in Facebook story because that's where that's where my friends are. That's where all my people, the people who know me are on Facebook. So they see it in Facebook stories. TikTok, because Joya does sell CBD. And I think one of the videos, someone must've turned it in for like marijuana, which like, I mean, it's not, CBD doesn't have, yeah. I mean, almost everything we have is THC free, and there's just a couple that have like a trace because they're full spectrum, but it's just anywho. So they basically shadow banned me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had like one.
Look at you. Now you are a real TikToker, Elizabeth, because now you have been shadow banned.
That video, like in a couple hours, it had like 10,000 views and it had 600 likes, and then someone turned it in, and yeah. So I think I have like, it can last up to a month. I have like 4 or 5 days, but yeah, I mean, you have to watch.
You have made it. Just know, Elizabeth, that you have made it. You have
once you're shadow banned
as a TikTok influencer because you have been shadow banned. Just so that everybody.
Yeah. It just sucks when I put it on Reels and Reels shows it to thousands of people and TikTok's like 57.
Yeah. No, you know how all these algorithms are. But I think this is so cool. I really love your story and I love talking to you and I love watching you, right? I'm a very observant person, but I love watching because I see what you're doing and that you're doing it for you and your family, but I know the story behind it and how the women that you are really trying to help and that's really a driver for you. And for me, with Ladies Who Leverage, it's the same thing, right? How do we empower women to just confidently navigate this world and be, stand in their power all the time, unapologetically, and just be badasses, right? So before we go, I want to talk to you about somebody who is just a joy and I think a badass in her own right. And it is Miss Annabelle. Mm-hmm. So Annabelle is your daughter. So tell us about Annabelle, because she is a special kind of woman. well, girl, right? But I call her woman, but she's a little girl, and she's just a joy. Whenever I see her, whenever I see what she's doing, it just brings a smile to my face.
Yeah, I think my aunt asked, she's like, "Is your daughter always this happy?" I said, "Yeah, when she's not being obstinate or a
Yeah.
stinker." So she definitely has an amazing smile. She's, she's got Down syndrome and all of the stuffs. But I was trying to think of the analogy, but basically, she knows what she wants, and as long as she has it, which she's pretty easygoing. Well, sometimes you get the pure joy, just pure joy and happiness that childlike, which is something that I kind of I don't know. I've had people, like, when I was an adult, they're like, "You're acting like a child." I'm like, "No, I have childlike joy."
Mhm.
But I'm also an adult. And yeah, no, she can be super obstinate in that way as well. What would you like to know about her?
Well, one of the things that I loved is, so during the pandemic, her mimicking, right? And watching you. And the reason I love that is because so many times we don't pay attention to the fact that our children are watching, right? We often think that they're listening, but they are watching what we do. And it was so interesting to watch over the time with the pandemic, which I know it was really hard for you to be able to work and to take care of her and to homeschool her, but watching her on a daily basis mimic you and your husband Kirk, and just wanting to be like you. What is that? Where does that come from for her? Or why do you think she's like that?
I think she's a strong, independent woman, and she's going
Yeah.
to do whatever she wants to do,
Yes, she
and there
does.
will be nothing to stop her. But she has been like this, and I feel really bad saying this because my perception of people with developmental disabilities is just kind of like that they sit in a chair and maybe kind of stare off or watch cartoon, like that. I don't know why I thought that. She's such a busybody. She's into everything.
Oh
She's a
yeah.
hot mess of into everything. A hot mess of everything. And constantly curious, constantly doing things, constantly into stuff. But whenever she sees me do something, she wants to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's really hit me hard. And I went to like a job fair or I did a job fair for the local Down syndrome guild when I still had the store, and I made one like dealing with paperwork and one with like helping with orders, and I did make one custodian job. Nobody wanted the custodian job, nobody. And every job fair place there, they were like, "You could help me wash cars, you could help clean offices at night." I'm like, "Why? Just because they have Down syndrome doesn't mean they like to clean." Actually, every kid, because it was teenagers, because they were teaching them how to like apply for jobs and stuff, everyone was like, I'm like, "And what's your weakness?" Because you're asking, doing a job interview, and like, my mom says I don't keep my room clean. I was like, why do they all have to grow up to be janitors just because they have Down syndrome? Because come on,
Yeah.
makes me so mad. The school even teaches them, they call it life skills, but they're teaching her to like change trash bags and wipe things down. And I'm like, dang it. So I kind of plan on her being an entrepreneur as well.
Yeah.
But it gives me chills. All she wants is to be like everyone else. All she wants to do is what everyone else is doing, and that's where the mimicking comes. It just doesn't matter whatever we're doing. I mean, if she doesn't have a pretend cell phone, she'll hold her hand up to her head and start
Yeah.
talking to her cell phone.
And her dolls and doing hair and doing makeup and cooking and all of it. In
Everything.
her with her iPad,
Uh,
right? She has her desk and her pens.
No, well, yeah, and her imagination is so intense. There was one time we were on a Zoom with her teacher, and she had her pretend phone, right? So she's on her phone, she set it down, and then she was doing some other pretend play, and then we did the lesson, and all of a sudden she was like, "Oh no!" And she started lifting up things, and I'm like, "What are you looking for?" She's like, "My phone." She had lost her imaginary phone. That's when I broke down laughing, because I'm like, how did she lose it? Where did it go? How did she know that she lost an imaginary phone in the first place? It was like 5 minutes later. I just died. How do you lose an imaginary phone? Anyway, so it's just, and it's tough because she doesn't have a whole lot of verbal words. So
Yeah.
people kind of think that that that's how people judge intelligence, is by words. And that's why, like, people with autism were thought to have developmental delays forever until they realize actually they're pretty bright inside. They just don't know how to speak. So, when people meet her and she can't speak so much, they just figure there's not a whole lot going on. When we get to the Down Syndrome Guild and they know sign language, they're like, oh my God, she's a bright cookie.
Yeah.
So we're just waiting for her language to catch up with everything that's going on inside.
Yeah. And I wanted to share her with everyone because she is such a joy. And I think it's important for us, not just the Annabelles of the world, right? She's a child, but when we're talking about adults and looking at people's potential, right? And not writing people off because what we can see physically of them or what we perceive, like you said, right? Even in the beginning, you had those perceptions. And so that's why I really wanted to share her, because, watching her, watch you, watch Kirk, and really do those things, for you to say, my dream for her is to be an entrepreneur. That is possible, right? That is totally possible. And so I really, I love that you share her with all of us. And it does just bring me a lot of joy. And you, Miss Elizabeth Chritton, bring me a lot of joy. I love just your smile and your laugh and the joy with which you go through life and the world every single day. So, you being a part of Joya.
I know, right? It kind of fits perfect.
Is just really marvelous. So if the listeners want to get in touch with you, want to buy your book, Making Millions, I know you said you have a new book coming out, but if they want to get in contact with you, how would they do that?
Facebook, Elizabeth Demas Chritton. I don't know if you can type that up because no one can spell Demas or Chritton.
I will.
Facebook. You can find me on TikTok. All kinds of Instagram.
Awesome. Well, Elizabeth, I'm so glad that you came on Ladies Who Leverage podcast. I am going to continue to watch you on TikTok. And for our listeners, you've heard me mention Ladies Who Leverage. This is the Ladies Who Leverage podcast. Ladies Who Leverage is a global network of badass women. And our whole mission is to empower women to live life unapologetically AF. So if you are a full-time entrepreneur, an enterprising side hustler, or a woman who is in career transition trying to decide whether you should get into these entrepreneurial streets, I would love to invite you to join us in Ladies Who Leverage. You can go to teamlwl.com, TEAM as in Mary, LWL.com, so that you can join our amazing community, because Ladies Who Leverage, it is not just some type of old community that you find on Facebook. We are an entire movement. So make sure that you subscribe to the Ladies Who Leverage podcast so that you can continue to listen to amazing interviews like this one we have done with Elizabeth. Our new episodes drop every Monday at 9 a.m. So please subscribe, like, share, and review the episodes. Thank you for joining us and hope you have an amazing day. Thanks for joining us. This podcast is brought to you by Lady Lawyer Media. If you're a badass woman who's ready to take action to live life unapologetically AF, then you need to join our global community on Facebook, Ladies Who Leverage. And remember to subscribe to our podcast. And until next time, let's collabosource, strategize, and monetize.